Should fit today. Oh, yeah, look at that.
Like a glove.
That's pretty impressive. We actually have a table that goes back together. We got about 6 months here of doing our podcast where the table's going to go together, and then 6 months when it doesn't go together. So
yeah, it definitely wouldn't fit if Easton had made it out of a black pine. Race hunting podcast inside joke.
Yeah. All right, guys. Welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. I'm David Holder, your host, and joined today by my two annoying sons, just flat out. I'm going to apologize at the beginning of this podcast like I do every week because I'm sure they will do something that will be embarrassing or aggravating, if not to you guys, to me. So, but it's all good.
Who's that sings that song like Halsey? I'm caught in the crossfire.
Boy, I don't know that anybody sings anything like that. So, but anyhow, so this is November 1st when we are recording. This won't go out till next week, though. So it's going to be a little.
It'll be election day, actually.
Yeah. Oh, boy. And so I don't care who you're voting for, go vote. Just make sure you vote. Make sure you have a voice.
Don't vote for
I kind of do. I kind of care.
We kind of would appreciate that you vote the same way we do, but that's not who we are, so it's okay. You just go vote, though. Get your voice out there. All right, so today we're going to give you guys kind of an update on what's going on whitetail-wise here in Iowa. We think it's applicable at least across the Midwest and even back into the eastern side of it. Maybe you guys down south aren't quite there yet because your deer are a little different as far as they haven't gotten there yet. You guys runs a little later. But we also have you guys have been doing fantastic, and we ask that you continually do so, is sending in topics and questions and things like that we can bring up in the podcast, because then we know we're giving you guys what you're looking for. And so we've got a couple of those today. So we're going to try to mingle those into what we're doing on the podcast. But basically, we're just going to kind of dive into right now. This is what, if you're a whitetail hunter, if you're a whitetail bow hunter, you've been waiting for this time of year. It's here now. So we'll try to make this as relative as we can and make this as informative and fun, because we've been having a blast chasing deer. We've been killing a whole lot, though. We kind of put the doe patrol on hold as we switch over to try to kill some bucks, and the bucks are kicking our butts. So
kicking your butts.
Well, you didn't get a shot yesterday either.
No, but my days to buck ratio is a lot better because I don't have that many days yet.
Oh, okay.
Huh? Yeah, exactly.
I should have stopped when I saw a list, and I'd be whipping you.
Okay.
That was way early in the year.
I know.
All right, so before we get started, though, as usual, Warren's going to do some shout-outs and talk about some of the folks that have been commenting and what they've been commenting. We got lots of new listeners, man. We sure appreciate you guys reaching out, letting everyone know. Before I turn it over to Warren, just remember, the Raised Hunting website is live as far as if you're looking for products. Lighted Nocks right now, if you're whitetail deer hunting, Sense, and Raised Canine. We are just starting to get a whole bunch of stuff in on the Raised Canine. So we've put together some packages for you. So if you guys have not looked into the Raised Canine line, please do. And if you have questions, shoot us messages on our website as well, and we'll try to answer all that. But I'm just going to speak. We have two dogs. Easton's got one and mine that are using these products. His uses the calming chews and mine uses the tincture, and it's life-changing for our dogs. It truly is. And so it means it's life-changing for us as well. So if you guys aren't familiar, get familiar. If you got questions, let us know.
All right. We're going to give the YouTube guys some love first. T-Mac S7X. He says, I think you're correct about your 1.5 mile circle in each direction and bucks and deer we've never seen. I also think your 100 yards off is correct. It blows my mind. Agreed, brother. Charlie Horton, 3484. Shout out. Says, I've been a fan of all y'all since day one, and I would recommend it to anyone to watch y'all's videos. Appreciate you, Charlie. William Ayers, SP4TT. And funny enough, he says, forgot to tell you, my son and I have been using the repairing mud, which is Raised Canine, on our German short hair. Awesome product. Has been working great. Thanks. You bet, buddy. We appreciate you. Jeremy Rupsick, Adam Schronk, 3620, says, I'm all about historical data. I wish I could data log and keep organized records in other aspects of my life the way I do on whitetails. Raised Right says, great podcast, boys. I got lucky and killed my target 171-inch 14-point 5-year-old Saturday morning over here in West Central Illinois.
Heck yeah.
Good job, buddy. He says, between last year and this year, 7 total sits to get 2 gross booners. That is
truck.
really good ratio right there.
That's really good.
Eric Robards says, great one, guys. Definitely very informative. Spotify people. I can't see the reviews, but I can give you guys that commented some love. So, B. Cavill1 says, love the podcast. Just found you guys a few weeks ago and have been listening to them whenever I'm driving to work. By far the best hunting podcast I have listened to. I look forward to the new episodes every week. We appreciate you, brother. Brian Zellers, he finds himself in a terrible position. He says, I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I've tagged out already this year in Central Illinois. I got a 7-year-old wide 8-point. He dressed out at 230 pounds and a 155-inch 9-point. As I don't travel out of state to hunt, how would you approach the remainder of your season if you were in this scenario?
Your
Blessed
season's
to have
over,
a great
brother.
season, but curious as how to approach the rest. Thanks, guys. Yeah, what a tough one. Dang it, man. We can't even have sympathy for you on that one. So, Apple Podcast people, we love you too, and we'll hit you guys next week. So, but in the essence of time, we're going to keep her cruising.
Sounds like a winner.
I've got a good one, a good story today from a very known name here, but this one's interesting. So, raised hunting family, October 27th has come and gone, but not without another successful story under my belt. Last year on this day, my wife told me to go get in the stand and enjoy my evening hunt. Because of that, I killed my first bear ever with a bow. Well, this year, October 27th, my wife tells me to go get in a stand and enjoy my evening hunt. So I got ready to head out, and I did what every husband should do and kissed her goodbye. Then she said to me, hey, good luck. Hopefully you get something big because it would be cool for our nieces and nephews to experience it. We had them over for the weekend, spending some time with them, just so you know. I assumed that, David. Thank you. So I headed out at 4 p.m. to head to my stand. I call Eiffel Tower stand. Got in my stand, and the wind started to swirl in every direction. But that didn't matter because 5:36, I had the 9-pointer come in that I'd been tracking all month to a scrape I made with raised scents. So at 15 yards, I drew my bow and let the raised knock fly. The buck ran 30 yards and crashed. Needless to say, now October 27th has a very special place in my heart. But with all that being said, I'm glad I could share the outdoors with the kiddos. And I was able to get it all done with the raised products and tips and tricks shared on the podcast. Thank you, David, Warren, and Easton. Now got to get back in the woods. I can still kill 2 more bucks. Happy hunting and God bless David and Amy Harrison.
There you go.
Heck yeah.
That's
Appreciate
2 in
you,
a row.
David.
He's on the verge of a Warren.
November 10th.
Yeah, Warren has a similar thing with November 10th. It went away real quick, but there for what, 3 years, 4 years?
At least 3, I think. Yeah.
I think that there was a gap in between one.
The
But
first
Warren's
2
killed at least 3 or 4 bucks, good bucks, if not big bucks, on November 10th, which is very funny.
Yeah, I think the first 2, the one you and I killed, the very first one here was November 10th, and then fully the next year was November 10th. I don't remember what deer I killed after that one.
I think your 10 the next year or whatever, that was a split G2 is like November 8th. It was very close to that time frame.
Oh, no, that one with Dad, that was Halloween.
I was going to say, I thought that was October.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it
A
was
lot earlier.
the 31st. And then I can't remember, maybe then there was a 109er, and that was like the 14th or the 15th. Then the big fat deer, that was the 11th. And Dragon was the 9th. And then after that, it's been mostly
October.
early, yeah. Well, or
early
November. Between October 29th, well, I guess between October 22nd and November 2nd. The big fat deer, though, was the one that I keep seeing everybody bragging about their deer. You know, that my deer was 250 with the guts in, or 260. And I'm like, now I have a much better idea of how big that freaking deer was, because he was 264.
264 with no entrails in him.
Dressed. We knew when Dad and I grabbed that deer and started pulling and he didn't go anywhere, we were like, what the frick?
It was heavy
No
as hell.
thanks.
Oh,
And we
Didn't
killed
know we
him
were
at
elk
the
hunting
very
here, not-
furthest stand and at the time, we didn't even know how to drive back to there. I could have got a lot closer than what we did. We drug him all the way to the top of that hill.
You still went bushwhacking with your truck.
Yeah,
dude.
I
don't
did.
even give a shit. Just
It sucked.
it was a very
That deer
hard
was
drag.
huge. Yeah. As a matter of fact,
I thought
we'll have
Dad
to-
wasn't pulling. I was like, "Come on, Dad, I need you to help some here." He's like, "I'm pulling."
I'm glad I wasn't the one down there.
Oh my God,
We,
the deer was heavy.
Remind me, Nick, and we have a picture of Warren standing next to that deer to post on the podcast so people can see it.
Didn't you guys?
Because it doesn't look right.
Didn't you guys put one on a freaking tree to get out of there one time?
Yeah, that was a doe.
A doe.
Yeah, after I told him, "Don't shoot a doe back here. Don't do that." Here comes
Thunk.
a doe.
It wasn't even a contest then. It was just
How'd
like
that
the shoot.
work?
It worked great. Put it
Yeah,
on
it
the
worked pretty
pole,
good.
and we came cruising out of there.
Was that before or after this big deer?
I think that was before.
I don't know if you'd
Yeah,
be
I
able to
can't
do it.
We
with
couldn't.
him.
We did. There wasn't.
Oh, no
there
way.
wasn't a tree big enough, and we couldn't. And we couldn't have got him high enough off the ground.
That's fair.
Yeah, it would have
I mean,
been impossible to get
yeah.
get onto your shoulder. I think.
Oof.
He was huge, huge.
Yeah, that was the thing about it. He's so long.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he was probably 6.5 feet or longer.
Joey's deer the other day. It ain't gonna be no 260, but
Oh yeah,
I don't know. He could
He
be in
could
that
potentially
260 range.
toad load.
he's got so much. He's so fat. All right. Well, I could read this one or just explain it quickly, and then that one. Or do
Well,
we want to do our updates?
I think we should
first?
do some updates quick.
Yeah, we could do updates. We missed that last week.
okay.
So
There's my update.
we're at November 1st, and so the beginning of the season, I think you guys all knew you were keeping track. Diva David was crushing some does. Warren jumped in and started killing some. Easton killed a few. We did not hit our target, and probably won't till after we kill some bucks. We still need to kill a few more does on some of the properties. But anyhow, then the season started to change. But I don't know about you guys. I don't know if I haven't kept track like nationwide. I do think it was nationwide, honestly, though, that the weather has been just – I'm not making an excuse that but the weather has been extremely odd. I've never seen a weather pattern where we go 80 degrees in the daytime, and then you might have a 35-degree night, and then the next night it's 80 degrees in the daytime and 80 degrees at night. I've not seen that, and Nick and I were talking about it. We don't know if it's something to do with the hurricane things that are going on, because we actually got rain from the hurricane one time in Iowa, or it caused us to get some rain kind of thing. So don't know what you guys are experiencing, but it has definitely, I think, played a pretty big pivotal factor in this, what I like to refer to as maybe one of the funnest and best parts of deer season is that pre-rut part. And it limited it, I mean, to a major, like we're not seeing the scrape activity that we would normally see from the bucks, the mature bucks, not seeing hardly any daylight activity, which we've seen in the past. I just felt like a lot of times I was just missing them. I was at the wrong place and they were there. I'm not missing them this time. We got cameras there and there's nobody there. So anyhow, so it's played, the weather can be, I don't think that the guys down south would have, they're going, oh, it's always 80 degrees here. And I think those deer are probably used to that. Ours has been just up and down. And the other one we've dealt with was really some volatile winds. And when I say volatile, like 60 mile an hour kind of winds, like damaging and stuff like that. Because you've said you've had, 3 trees fall that you've heard?
That.
No, but I mean
I've heard them while we've been sitting in a stand. Have 3 of them falling.
But we've had 3 stands.
We accidentally sat under one of them, actually.
Well, we've actually had 3 stands in a year, which I've never had. Maybe one. The beaver that cut our stand down was one.
And that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, but this year we've had 3 stands that have been hit by trees. And demolished.
Yeah.
Like blew them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, crushed.
Yeah, the last damaged tree stand we had was from a shotgun slug.
Yeah, that one's actually back in a tree now.
Yeah, that's concerning.
Yeah, it is. Not in the same place. And it was not a shotgun slug from us. It was from a neighbor. And we just found the hole through the stand and through this butt cheek. If you'd have been sitting in it, your butt cheeks would have had a hole through them.
Another one.
Yeah. This one would have gone horizontal, not vertical.
Yeah. Not much use in that one.
I haven't been able to update much. What has frustrated me the most, I feel like I'm freaking coyote hunting. And the reason I say that is because coyote hunting has been my new thing for the past couple of years that I've been trying to figure out and learn. And one of my most frustrating things with coyotes is that if you don't see them, like if you're calling to them or whatever, and they never come in, or they don't show up on the field edge or something where you can see that, oh, they definitely smelled me, or I sat in the wrong spot or whatever. I can't learn. I don't have any way to learn. And that's what right now it's driving me up a wall that all I'm trying to do is just even sit somewhere where I can just see something to try to get an idea of where something is. But like this morning was really weird. I watched a buck show up at like freaking whenever I texted you, it had to have been like 8 or it was early.
Yeah, it was right. Just a hair after daylight.
And he looked like a pretty mature deer. And he comes walking by below us and beds down right in the middle of a field. And then I look behind us and there's 2 does, and I look up there, bed down at 8 o'clock. Like they just came back to their areas. And everything was bedded, like, immediately. So I don't know if you guys have theories on that. My thought was either I don't know why they're bedding early, but I would assume that they're bedding early, so now you're going to have probably, if you're sitting, like, in the timber, you could have some really good midday movement of them coming. Still, they bedded somewhere, and then they're still going to move back in there. Because we did watch them at, like, 10 o'clock. One or two of them got up and moved from being out in the open into the timber. But I'm pretty sure they went right there and bedded down again. But I don't know if you guys
see now
see that.
When you texted me that, we hadn't seen a deer. I mean, and then about 9:30, they came from everywhere.
No, so maybe
it was like an hour and a half, and then all of a sudden we went from 0 to 7 bucks and 5 or 6. We saw more bucks than we saw does, but that's not uncommon at this time of year. Now, granted, we had a bunch of spikes. I mean, there was a couple sporks, but most of them were just straight spikes. We saw one antlered buck. I mean, one like racked buck, two racked bucks. Biggest one being like 135, 140 inch, 2 or 3 year old kind of deer. That's the kind of deer you like to see on their feet this time of year. It says, okay, the bigger ones are thinking about doing what they're doing and out doing something. But he snuck up on us. We didn't have any clue he was there. We didn't do any rattling or anything this morning. So there's a tip for someone. I had texted Easton and said, I'm getting ready to smack the horns together because I hadn't seen anything. And then I got nervous because the wind was everywhere. It was just like not much wind at all, and so it was kind of swirling where we were. And so if you ever have that situation, blind calling is the last thing you want to do, because they're more than likely going to come in and stand around for a few minutes, and they're going to get wind of you, and you're not going to get a shot, and you're going to educate that deer. So I texted him back and said, I'm not doing it, and the deer started showing up anyhow. So. But be really careful unless you got a good wind. Blind calling is fun. I love to do it, and it's worked for me multiple times. I've killed some good deer, but I only do it when the wind is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I've only hunted a couple times, but the one day I hunted with Alyssa was a really good sit. We had 2 really good bucks get close, and then last night was good too. Not many deer real close to us, but we saw a lot of deer on their feet, including 2 deer that I think were. I'm quite positive both are 5 at least, and good deer. One's probably 150 inch 8 or so, and the other one's about 160 some inch deer that we've known, and they're definitely seeking right now. Mm-hmm. But I think some people should probably take vacations during earlier parts of the season, because the problem, as much as I love that later October window, the weather can kill it 100%, in my opinion. You get that 75, 80 degree stuff, it's almost pointless. Just because you're reliant on that weather. Like that's why I say if you got a specific deer, you got to get close to him, and then you need the right weather to be able to get him up and moving to give you a chance. When it's that hot, they just don't do anything. So I think that I wouldn't be too worried about where your deer are, or that you haven't seen a buck or a certain buck or anything in the last week or two, just because it's been so whack. Now I think they're going to be starting to move, and if I was going to be making moves on a specific deer, I'd be doing it right now, because then you got about 2 or 3 days here where they should be seeking real close to their core area stuff before they're going to be finding does and heat, and then it kind of gets a bit more sporadic.
Well, I think there's an issue with that you got to have them there.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to have it in there.
That's what's been, I don't know if it's just because I'm hunting a new area for the first time since I lived with you guys. And so I'm not I guess in my head I've always thought of the amount of deer you're always seeing and numbers wise. And then where I normally am hunting isn't the amount of numbers, but it's a lot more difficult of a place to hunt. I have other people that hunt there, and it's just very random as far as the deer that are coming through. And even in years past there, I mean, it's way harder to hunt. And that I would at least have seen multiple shooters at this point. And this year, I like that. That's why I'm not going to just double down on it. I'm going to go somewhere else and just expand because I don't know. There's no way for me to have done everything to figure out where, like, for instance, Gump. I think he's still around there. No idea.
He'll show up.
Well, I've been saying that too. I agree that he's going to show up. But you can't really just freaking go, I've been randomly sitting. And there's no way, in my opinion, there's not really any good way to have any idea to go sit here now. When those 3 days are that important, if you have a line on another deer, you could be going to another deer.
Yeah.
If the wind's, I think you just got to, I mean, that's the best case scenario is to have a couple deer that you know that you'd be willing to shoot, and they have different winds that you can hunt them, and then you just go, that's where you sit. You let the wind determine which one you're after.
Yep.
Not everyone has that opportunity, you know. And because that's where I am this year. I'm just kind of like, okay, the wind, like tonight though, we're trying to kill Mr. Liss. I think everyone already knows that. And he's 7 or 8 years old. He's not this giant buck. If you drove by him on the road, we wouldn't even have to worry about a poacher shooting him because they would just drive right past him because he's just not that impressive. But he's earned his way into this family as far as how we've known him forever. And so
we'd like to kill him.
Well, he's been more than a worthy adversary.
Oh yeah.
You know, so anyhow, we are going to try something tonight that we haven't tried. So maybe I can share that with people, and that is sometime Warren had a deer called Bullwinkle, and Bullwinkle we didn't know it at the time. Warren figured it out that he thinks he knew that what we were doing when we came in. And we're not sure if Liss has kind of figured out some of this on this other property we're hunting. However, last night would tell me no, because we saw him last night. And where he was at, he had no idea that we were there. However, he may know that someone is in that area over there on a northwest wind. Maybe he can document that in his head. I can't go there when the wind is like that because he doesn't seem to, because other days he walks in at 5:30 and is in the middle of the food plot. And so tonight is the wind that he should feel the most comfortable with. And I got a new spot that we're going to try to get close to him, and we're going to hunt him with a southeast wind. And if I'm right, he's going to show up way early because he's going to feel confident that he can walk in there and no one's going to be there. And he's not and if he comes from where I think he'll come from, he won't know we're there.
I think that he'll
have a good chance.
Yeah, I don't know why, but that deer specifically, I don't know him all that well besides just this year. He seems like he doesn't give a crap. He does very I just feel like he isn't doing something specific to something else that's specific. For instance, the wind. So it's a northwest wind. I'm going to be over here. And then when you said that the other day, of that you're going to go there for a southeast wind, and you guys have never hunted that or anything with a southeast wind, I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I bet you. I feel like he's going to do that.
Could trip him up.
But I also don't. That deer is weird to me. He seems like he just kind of does his thing.
Yeah,
like it's totally random.
It could be that he's just lucky,
or he sits a couple.
I don't think he's that lucky. I'm the guy who says I think most deer are stupid, but I mean this is like 4 years now.
Well, not for me. I've hunted him for 2. Last year was the first year I finally said I want to try to kill him because Alyssa.
But he was also there.
He was there, but I never hunted him.
Right, and so I have a hard time believing he got that lucky every single time. And then he continues to get that lucky. And then we're in there the other day moving a stand, and he's right there. 2 hours later,
he walks out in front of the camera.
Yeah, I think he's a little more intentional than what we've been giving him credit for. And then if you also look at last year, you were playing ping pong. You'd go sit over here, and he'd show up over there. And you'd go sit over there, and he'd show up over here. And I think that I would attribute that to maybe he had an idea of what was going on. So my theory on those deer is whenever you have something like that where they're there all the time and they show up at certain times, just do something different. Because maybe they figured something out, and I think what you guys are going to go do, I don't know exactly what you're going to go do, but it sounds to me like a much better plan than doing the same thing.
Yeah, expecting a different result.
Yeah. So.
All right. So where are the deer right now? Right now, I agree with Warren. I mean, that chasing phase They're there. I personally don't, for whatever reason, I've seen it multiple times. On November 4th, I've seen a buck breed a doe. And that kind of is in my head. That's the trigger day. That's the day that they're actually, Easton and I were talking about, we're not sure that there couldn't be a first round of does already kind of there, because some of our bigger deer have disappeared from the scrapes. And that's something that you should expect. Scrapes and rubs may slow down now because these deer have got what they're looking for, and they're going to go from one to the other. And now you're going to get that random swing in there at 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. It doesn't matter when he loses that doe or when he's done with that doe. Oh, I just need to freshen this scrape, or I need to hit this rub, let everyone know who I am. And that can be one of the most fantastic times to have rattling antlers, because you catch him going from one to the other. You hit them together. He's like, I'll just go steal theirs. That just saved me a lot of time. Here he comes. Yep. So, but anyhow, so that's kind of what I think we're going through. We are getting ready for us. Anyhow, it looks like the temperatures are going to kind of moderate a little bit. It's still going to be a little warmer than normal, but it's pretty consistent for the next 14 days. It's 50s and 60s in the day and going down in 30s and 40s at night.
Yep.
So that should play in help everyone, I think.
Yep. All right. I think we should probably tackle only one of these now.
I think
we've chatted.
I think we should do this one.
Okay.
You want me to read it since I got it here?
Yeah, you don't have to do the whole thing. But
Well, I can read pretty fast, and I'm not going to mention the name and the reason why I wanted to read this whole thing is because I think every single person I know that's a bow hunter, if you're not a liar, this has happened to you.
Or maybe you haven't been hunting that long.
yeah.
Or you haven't been hunting long enough.
There is another option here.
That's the only one. But I can't stand the ones that say, oh, yeah, it's never happened to me, and I've been hunting for 20 years. Yeah, well, then you just lied to all of us. All right. So it says, and I can skip that. I'm a huge fan of the podcast. We appreciate you. But they wanted to ask some advice. Over the weekend, I took a shot on one of my target bucks. I ended up putting a bad shot on him. This was my first hunt of the year, and I was excited to finally be out. You've always said on the podcast, if they do something twice, you need to be there the next day. And that's what I did. I ended up doing a hanging hunt because my wind was wrong. Because my wind was the complete opposite for what it called for, which ended up being a good thing. This group of bucks came from somewhere I didn't expect and ended up walking 20 yards from me. Looking back, I had all the time in the world to draw on this buck, but was so convinced if I moved, he'd see me, and he'd be gone. He finally moved past me. I'd draw back, get him stopped, but it's behind some sticks. I was so worried about the sticks that I must have not been looking where I should have been. I shouldn't have taken the shot, looking back now, but I did. He runs off about 50 yards and stands there for about 15 minutes before moving off and out of sight. There was a lot of blood, but we tracked him over a mile and bumped him twice, finally deciding that he would make it after seeing him run off for the second time. I'm so sick to my stomach that I decided to take that shot in the moment and put a bad shot on this deer. My last archery buck I harvested was 2020, but haven't had a chance at another mature deer since. I've had so many encounters with deer in general, but not one I wanted to harvest. My question is, how do you train yourself to think, process what's happening in high pressure, fast happening situations, and how do you regain confidence and get the spark back after the experience? When something like this happens, it makes you want to hang the bow up and not go back out. I know I've never met you guys, but I respect your opinions and advice you give out. Keep up the good work on the podcast, YouTube videos. God bless and good luck this season. And so I want to address that last statement about a couple of things. I haven't ever I took a bad shot. Been there, done that. Taken a shot that I shouldn't have taken. I can think of more than one, and it seems like because I hunt more species than just one, that's where it will. But it does sound like that they've already learned. It's already internalized, and that's the best thing that you can do, and that's what's going to put you back in a tree and doing it again. Learn from that mistake. Yeah, you've wounded an animal. Hopefully, it isn't a fatal wound. Deer survives. Even if it is, you've got to get back on the horse, so to speak, and go on about what you're doing. But don't do it again the next time. And if you do that, you're going to get better and better. The one place that I would tell you not to go that I hear in there is you haven't seen a deer that you wanted to harvest. Lower your standards. Lower your standards so that you can start shooting more deer. because the more deer that you shoot, the better you're going to get in situations like that. This won't happen as much, even if it's starting to shoot more does, even if it's just killing a buck. What happens, and I'm not saying that's what happened to this person, but what happens a lot is everyone sees Trophy Bucks of Iowa, Raised Hunting, other television shows, all these social media, and everything's huge. Well, I don't want to shoot that. You hear us talking about we passed a buck. I also shot a lot of button bucks, spikes, forked horns, 6-point bucks, 8-point bucks that did not make Pope and Young or anywhere close. And I was freaking dang happy. I was thinking this morning we had a spike underneath us, and I remember killing my first spike that had 1 horn. And I was and that was with a rifle. I was so jacked that I went out after a rain and I started sneaking through the woods, and all of a sudden this deer shows up and he's like 50 yards and I shoot him, and I was super pumped. And I don't think I've ever felt any better about killing a booner or killing a deer that I've been looking for, a target deer, than I did that day killing that deer. So just don't worry about what everyone else is going to think. Get that experience and let it work its way to where you're to that point where it's like, I can let this deer walk. It's okay.
You want to go?
Well, I had told him, because I tried to answer, I try to answer every once in a while on things that would be like it would be nice to have an answer before we do a podcast that's a week or two down the road. But I had said that one of the biggest things that I've really, 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 really bought into this year, especially, and I've always have, but is shooting does. And the reason I say that is because I've learned this year was really good for me in the first couple does. Like, it's going to be a habit of mine. It already kind of has been, of like early season, I'm trying to shoot some does. Helps with lots of things. Helps with the population. It helps with the buck to doe ratio. It'll in turn help with your rut a lot of times if you can keep your stuff in in a healthy balance. But I found myself on my first doe this year pretty nervous. And I shot her, and I knew I made a good shot, but it wasn't where I wanted the shot to be perfectly. And it really kind of irked me, actually, because I'm like, man, if that was a buck, I don't know if I would have shot as well, or I don't know. So the next doe I went and shot, I said, okay, dude, you're gonna get this figured out, because yes, you just smoked that doe, but your shot needs to be where you are aiming. And so the next one that I'm shooting, I am going to physically think through, like, okay, here's where the shot is. I really don't care about anything else whatsoever. No emotion, nothing. I'm setting it all aside, and I'm going to get to full draw, and you have to think to yourself, I naturally get my pin settled where I want it to, but I'm going to make myself look at it again and tell myself, while I've got a deer standing there, check your pin again and make sure it's settled in the right spot. And when it is, now you can shoot. And when I did that, I smoked that doe. And it just gave me a massive flow of confidence again. Like, because the first one, like I said, I hit her good, but it wasn't exact. My confidence was riding a little low. And so after that, I was like, okay, you've got to get warmed up with some does no matter what, because now I'm like that cocky, confident, like, oh, come on, any buck that comes in is done for. And you need that. I mean, not in the cocky sense, but like you have that much confidence that when something comes walking in, you're going to make the shot. And so I would encourage shoot does, unless you're in some place that is like struggling for your population or something. But if you have the opportunity to go buy the cheap tags, you are either filling your freezer up or fill your freezer up and then start donating the meat to help other people out. So it's a good win all around, and it helps you. And experience is key, and don't be passing deer. That's my thing.
Yep. I think if you think of missing deer or hitting deer wrong, I think you can kind of put that into 3 buckets. Either one, you can't hit what you're aiming at. Okay? For you need to go back to the range and practice. Bucket 2 is I can't control my emotions. I can shoot great on the range. I lose my shit in the scenario, and that is a lot of people.
I'd say that's
that's the majority.
Yeah.
Yes. And then there is 3, which I just heard in this scenario, of I don't understand the animal's behavior and can't anticipate what they're going to do and when they're going to do it that accurately yet. And we actually just saw a prime example of this yesterday.
Yep.
And the third bucket, there is only one way that you can accomplish that. And that is you got to do it, and you got to do it a bunch.
You have to learn it, like just watch and watch and watch.
Right. So, for instance, we were looking at a video of a friend of ours yesterday. They got a big buck hitting a rub tree at 10 yards. And Dad's watching the video, and the deer lifts up his head, and he just looks to the right. And Dad's like, draw, draw, draw. Which,
not in the video. Dad's watching the
Right,
video.
watching
Like
the video.
narrating from behind.
yes. So he's like, you need to draw right now. And you were 100% correct. You're kind of a jerk, not trying to be, but you
I
were
didn't realize I was
correct.
saying it out loud.
Oh, yeah. I felt so
And-
bad. I was like, oh, David.
Yes,
Self-awareness.
because the hunter is sitting right there, right? And he's correct, and then the deer moves, and he's not at full draw yet. Then he gets to full draw, but by that time, the deer's already made it a few other yards, and then he has to try to stop him in a window, and when he does, the next thing
Boogers.
is grunts too loudly. That's, for somebody else that's been in that scenario a lot of times, you're not going to start with a meh. You're going to start with a meh, meh, meh. Like you have tones to it, just like you would Juice the one time. Starts at meh. He's running. Yeah. Because
You may end up yelling at him, but at least
Oh,
you've
yeah.
worked up to that.
the goal when you're stopping a deer is to get them to question what they heard,
Right.
not to make it very clear. Because when you make it very clear sometimes, if it
They're
doesn't
gone.
sound like a grunt, it's like, what the frick is that?
Yeah.
So, or it's like, I'm
experience.
getting flanked, you know? So I think that,
I'm getting flanked.
well,
in from the right, boys.
Yeah. You ain't flanking me. I'm a lard, but I'm getting out of here. I'm ready. So you've got these three categories. The worst one, in my opinion, would be number one, that you just aren't practicing enough. And
Preparation. That's
And
a very controllable.
However,
Yes.
that's the most fixable
yes.
because it's just a matter of
True.
practicing more.
absolutely. So number one, I think, is that should not be the problem. And if it is, then you're taking the wrong shots. And you need to reevaluate your ethics and the shots that you're willing to take. Now we go to number two. These people, I think you have to create a method. You have a method, I have a method, and you have a method. And I think if you don't have a method, you are almost guaranteed to miss. And especially if you're a good shot, it will baffle your mind by how much you
You'll
will miss by.
Yep.
Because you're going to be like, what the frick did I do? And you can't remember. That's the worst part.
Oh yeah, it goes blank.
Yep, it's like I have no idea. Because I remember being a little kid and shooting. Dad would get annoyed with me because I'd go through bowstrings so often. But I would get pissed because I couldn't hit I'd shoot an orange dot at 30 that was about the size of a dollar coin or
Yeah, it
something
was
like
made
that.
for. It's the stickers that you would put on a rifle.
Yeah, and
target.
I'd get mad if I couldn't get all of my arrows in it. I was just obsessed with shooting my bow. And then we went antelope hunting, and I had a doe. She was either at 25 yards or right at 30. And I shot like 4 inches over her back. All three of us were in the blind.
Was that by the bowling pin?
Yes, kind of. Like it was
not
on
right there. Yeah.
by our old lease.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now I was a kid, but at the same time, I could hit a
You're good.
dollar
You've always
at
been a good
30, and I
shot.
just missed by 12
12
to
inches,
14
yeah.
inches. And I'm like, what in the frick? And then I missed quite a few more times until I came up with a method. And then at that point, now is what happens is now it's not just pure adrenaline and your mind's just blank. There's actually a concentrated mission of what you're trying to do.
But you're learning how to control what's happening. Because I want to back up because I think it's the greatest. So those people that have that and I've seen it at all different. There's different levels of it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I want to hunt with them all because they're the ones that are so freaking excited about seeing a doe, about seeing, like, oh my gosh, a deer. And they're so much fun to hunt with them. But I have seen someone physically shaking so bad, there's no way they could. And this was on an elk hunt. And this particular guy, when I had gone back to call, and when I came back, they had shot, and he's still shaking. And I'm talking about like this. And for those people that can't see it, like almost like you had seriously like a disease.
Yeah.
And I was like, "You all right?" And because he was still like, his voice couldn't. He was like. He came right here, and of course that's the guy that's telling you it was a 350-inch bull, and I shot him right behind the shoulder, and then come to find out it's a raghorn bull that he hit in the ass, and it's because their mind goes. And so my point is, I love you guys and gals that get that excited, and we've all been there, and you're not losing anything when you learn to do what Warren's talking about and control it. you got to be able to keep it together through the shot. Then sit down in your stand and let her fly,
Yep. So let's go let's go to the third one real quick, and then we need to go back. And I do think we should all address our methods, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this like, yeah, I got an issue when it happens, So the third one, and I think this is one of the biggest differences between people becoming a decent hunter and a great hunter, is just simply how well do you understand that animal and what that animal is going to do and what their behavior means. Because this makes it where these opportunities, you're able to capitalize on them. It lets you know when should you grunt at a deer, when should you rattle at deer. You know roughly how to anticipate. It could be as simple as moving your feet in the stand, because you can tell, oh, he's actually going to come to the right, or this doe did this, or he's not looking at you, he's looking past you, and you know that if you're here that you could draw because you have no other opportunities, those types of things. And the only way you can do that is you have to shoot deer or animals. You got to shoot animals. So it pains me when I hear people that put themselves in this position where they're trying to shoot target bucks, and I can see somewhat of a where you could have somewhat of a self-conflict in saying that I don't want to shoot something that I'm not proud of. Okay, but I think that you need to reset what it is that you should be proud of. If you've only killed 3 deer, you should still be proud
Any deer
to
you kill
make
with
a
bow
good
and arrow.
shot on a deer, period.
Yeah.
And you need to figure out how to reset that bracket for yourself. If that means that you got to unfollow Trophy Bucks of Iowa, not us, obviously, but everybody else, then you might have to do that for a little while, because that's where it gets mixed. That's what's actually going to give you the ability to then close on the big deer. Because
100%.
otherwise, what's going to happen is then you're going to have the deer of a lifetime that you're hunting, and you're going to get a shot, and you're going to hit them in the leg, or you're going to miss, or and it's going to continue to happen because you're trying to force yourself to gain that experience in the most peak. It would be like putting a rookie quarterback into the Super Bowl
and start him
every time, and he's got to play the best defense and the best teams and the best coaching every time, and you're expecting him to get better. Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
So I think you've got to give yourself experience.
100%. And here's the thing that I guess I would go back, and people that don't know that, so raising the two of you, if you go back to your guys' first animals you shot, there is no 180-inch deer. It's not a Pope and Young antelope. It's not a Boone and Crockett this or that. And I'm going to pick on those dads out there, because dads are the ones that typically do it. If you got a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old and you're trying to put them on a 180-inch deer because you want your kid to get, you could put them on a fork and horn or a doe, and they would get just as excited. I have a problem with that. I think when you start setting that bar so high like that, then you're going to make it hard for that person to learn how to deal with what you guys are talking about, where if you slowly, gradually move up that, and you have a lot better opportunity, more chances at it and things like that. And then not only do you get better at making the shots, but you have a ladder that you're climbing. Oh, I would like next year. I love listening to Joey. Yeah. Joey's like, because he killed a doe, then he killed a buck. And then next he's like, I would like to kill a Pope and Young deer. Now, if it happens, a 180-inch deer walks in, and we're not telling you to pass, but he's not looking. He hasn't set a bar like that for himself. He's got something that's extremely attainable in Iowa, what he's after, and he should get multiple opportunities, hopefully, at that. But it's also not low enough that he's going to, I can do that tomorrow, I mean, so.
He's going up a ladder.
Absolutely.
He's the epitome of what a new hunter is progressing properly. Not that there's a right or a wrong way, but how he's progressed, and how, because he does a very good job of setting goals too.
Absolutely.
Of like we went, I think it was 2 years ago, I hunted with him a lot, just about all the time. Well, last year he came up with a goal. He wants to harvest a deer. It doesn't have to be a buck or something, but a buck or a doe on his own. And so then he was hunting a lot more alone. Well, then now this year, he's pretty much always hunting alone unless I got an extra day or something. I go film him. So he's progressed very well, and I think that has put him into where he can. If you would have put him in that position 2 years ago, I just aired him out, but on the buck that came into the rub tree, he would have been like over the moon.
Yeah.
And he thought it was awesome yesterday, but he's like, man, I wish I could have gotten that done. But he just learned a huge lesson.
Oh,
and he was calm throughout all of it. I wasn't sitting there watching his arrow go like it used to do.
And you have to have that experience, though, to learn that lesson.
Yes,
It's the only way
exactly.
you can do it. And I think that the other thing is people that do look at us, they need to have a good understanding, too, that we haven't always been killing giant things. I mean, when it comes to elk, I was smoking raghorns and stoked,
me
or
too.
cows. Even Dad, one of them, it wasn't too long ago.
No, that was a cow, and we were super happy about killing a cow after 7-8 days.
I think it was 9, and he wasn't even 100% sure I was going to shoot the cow. I was like, this cow comes in, I'm shooting her. And he's like, okay. And then she comes around us, and I'm like sitting like this. I'm doing everything I can to get, and he's like, holy shit, he's actually going to shoot her. And I shot that sucker, and I was stoked. But then when it came to deer, when we moved here, I just got lucky. And I wasn't shooting 170 or 180-inch deer, but the deer I shot with you, that was the first buck that I had a shot at. If you remember, I tried to shoot another one before that was probably 115 and was going to be just as stoked. But I just got lucky, and so I shot that one. The next year, Bully was the first deer that came by. Shot that one. The next one with you, that was the first deer. I shot that one. They're all like 140 to 50-some-inch deer, and that's just part of the fortunate thing of where we live, that's a very possible scenario. And so it's been a long time before we started saying, okay, we're only going to be shooting big animals. And I don't even care about it being a big animal. It's got to be something that gets me excited. So,
well, I want to go back to what we read, though, because
should we dive into our methods real fast before we get too far
let me
away
just
from that?
talk about, please, I don't want them to feel bad. And so I want them to understand my turning point. I really feel like in my entire hunting career was when we moved to Montana. I'm hunting elk, and I called a bull in with Jason Manley. Called 3 of them in. They came running in. They're raghorn bulls, but I haven't killed a bull. I've been hunting for like 25 days. And these bulls come in, and he stops at 15 yards, quartered hard to me. And I know I'm at full draw. I'm ready for this bull, right? Because they're coming. One passes me, and I don't get a shot. So the second one's coming. He's going to pass. I'm going to stop him right here. Well, he stops short, and he's like 10 yards. But when I say quartered to me, he's not facing straight at me, but he's quartered pretty hard. And I get that pin settled, and I'm like, come on, you got to move. You got to move. I know in my head I need him to take another step or two. But what do I do? When he doesn't do it, I finally pull the trigger. I'm like, I can just put it right behind the shoulder, and I'll get him. And I stuck that arrow in that bull, and I never found that bull. I spent 2 days looking for him. Later on, a month later, Jason got a call from the ranch next door. They found that bull laying dead with my arrow still stuck in him. And that wasn't the point. The point when I released that arrow and I knew what I had just done, exactly where they were, that I know I shouldn't have taken that shot. And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And that comes to what you're asking is, how do you deal with what we're talking about? I tell myself it's not going to happen. That's how I get to a shot. I constantly, when I see a deer that I want to shoot, goes into my head, he's not going to give me a shot. He's not going to come to under 40 or under 30, or he's not going to turn broadside. I'm not going to be able to get the full draw. I'm not going to be able to get him to stay there. And then all of a sudden, all that has happened. He's come in. He's within range. I'm at full draw. He's still standing there, and I shoot. And I've kept myself completely calm because I was telling myself the entire time it wasn't going to happen until it did. And so my point with that is where mine changed, was on that one, because I was so exactly that statement. It's not going to happen. This is my only opportunity, and then it's not going to happen again. You got to get that out of your mind. You got to be able to tell yourself, I'll get another chance. Might be next year, but I will get another chance. And the animal deserves more. And once I started figuring that out, once I told myself the animal deserves better than that, for me to try to take something that is not what I know, and I knew that day that what I was doing was questionable, at least questionable in my head. And if it was questionable in my head, then that goes back to what you were talking about, being confident, or you were talking about being confident, because that's the best way I can describe that, because I played baseball, and all of us played anyone who's played sports, but baseball is number one, is there's a day you stand at the plate and the ball looks like it's this big when it comes in. Like you could hit anything. And then there's another day you're there and the ball looks like it's a ping pong ball or a golf ball, and it's moving all over, and you're like, I can't touch it. It's all in your mind. It's like that ant the other day that you sent that they draw, or the spider that they draw, and he's got in his mind he can't cross that line, and all of a sudden he does. That's what you have. You have to have that confidence that you're talking about, Easton. It's not cocky. It's just saying, I know I can get this done. If they come within this, once they're in that zone, now it's on me.
Yep. And that one doesn't work for me, because the problem is if I told myself that and he's at like 50 and then he starts walking towards me,
You're
I'm
you
like,
idiot.
I'm like, oh, it is going to happen. And so then I start losing my lunch. So the way I look at it is the very first thing I start doing is start just burning a hole. I'm just staring at them. And I guess to go back to our examples, I'm trying to be like a quarterback where I'm thinking through every scenario, and instead of letting my adrenaline get the best of me, I'm focused on how to make sure that I execute. So I'm looking at, okay, he's coming this way. He's most likely going to come like this, and I know that tree is 30 yards. I also know that at that point he can't see me, and I'm going to draw right there, or that this or this, and then, or if it's something where he's just one of those deals where they're going to come right at you, because most of our shots are well under 30. Our average shot is probably like 20-some yards. I'm only focused on two things: just staring at where I want to hit that animal, and when I'm going to draw. Those two things is it. And so I think if you looked at BG last year, which BG was the first year I've ever had, or at least in a long, long time, where the antlers really screwed me up, that I actually had to mentally tell myself, because I remember I was like, holy shit. And I'm like looking at this rack, and then I was like, nope, wait, go back. And so then I'm like, okay, that's all I started doing is I'm scanning the field. Okay, there's a gap there, because I didn't think he was going to cut like he did. I was like, when he gets into that gap, because I thought he was going to keep going up the hill, that's 24. I'm going to be able to be at full draw right there, and I'm going to give him it's calm. I'm just going to give him a meh, and be ready to do another one right away, because it wasn't a super big window, and I'll be able to smoke him. But then he comes right up to us at 6 yards, and I think that's the other thing about it, that experience is a lot of people probably would have been scared to draw when I did, because he
had his
so
head
close.
up, didn't he?
He had his head up.
He was looking around.
He was looking around, but we would have technically kind of been in his peripheral vision, but I could tell he wasn't paying any attention to us, and then I was already like this. So for me to just make this slow movement to right there, he never had any clue at all.
That's a huge thing, though, for practicing how to controllably draw and let down.
Yeah,
we have a lot of video in the past 2 years of situations I've been in where if it wasn't for me to be able to draw slowly and controlled and also let down, I'd bust deer left and right.
Yep.
But you got to practice that. I mean, that's because if you think about it, you're not moving really in their view.
Yep.
No, I mean, and that's something that you guys learned from a super young age, that it was your bow is here, that movement right here straight away. When they're looking straight at you, they can't even see that.
Yeah.
They don't know. And the scenario is you can go fake someone out by doing it to a human, hold your bow up and pretend like you just drew, and the person will start ducking because they'll think that you're at full draw now.
Don't do this, but don't do that. But yes,
I'm just saying that you can't tell, and an animal
well,
can't.
Even if they do catch enough something, it's not a drastic movement.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of like what was that?
Yeah,
You know?
was that a bird or a squirrel in the tree that just did something?
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'd recommend doing that all the time. I only would recommend that when there's no better time to draw, where I was looking at when he was going to be where I needed to shoot. I didn't want to have to be worried about getting it full draw, and it was uphill. So the higher he got up that hill, the more eye level he was going to be with us. Right. Is your method any different than either of ours?
I don't really do any of them anymore. Like I have a method, but the more I've been thinking about it, the harder I'm going to have a time of explaining it, because we all know that I've gone through all kinds of mental confidence issues in wounding deer, and it took tolls on me for a long time because I can shoot well, but I couldn't shoot in a stand. And what I found myself doing, I just realized it yesterday too, is that I don't anymore. I don't try to like convince myself of something or another thing or whatever else. I've tried he's not coming in. He's not coming in. Now the one I do that with is turkeys because those little turds are so random. But I don't really do that anymore, and I don't do like just burning a hole. I look at where I'm going to hit, and I think about how good it's going to feel to just put it right there in that perfect spot. But I've addressed everything in my head. Like I purposely tell myself, yeah, this is a really big freaking deer, and I'm going to shoot him. And I don't care if I look at the antlers. If I want to look at the antlers, I'll look at the antlers. But I have to be able to physically control and be cognitive in the moment. And I guess the reason I say that is because my big thing is I have to be like with the now. What I used to be is like everything's happening so fast and everything is so cool. I'm amped up and everything that once I shoot, you don't even remember where you hit, what you shot, like or what happened because you just black out. You're that excited. Well, now I make it to the point where my turning point was, I don't even know what deer it was, but one of the first times I was like, that's it, was I shot a deer and I smoked, I think it was Hershey. And when I smoked him, the only thing that was in my head was the perfect imprint of my broadhead and arrow and everything going in right where I wanted it to. And I couldn't get that out of my head. So I knew exactly where I'd hit. And I was like, that is what I want every single time. And so now all I do is I know that I have to be with it enough in my head. I have to be able to recognize where that arrow hits exactly all the way through. I don't care what the situation is. I need to know where that arrow is going to hit. So you need to chill out. And now what that's done to me is I don't feel anything until the moment the arrow is gone. And then it's like amplified because it's like I let it all build. But it's been very, very helpful for me to be able to remove emotion. Like once I realize it's a shooter, my heart goes. And then once I realize that I'm going to have a chance to shoot the deer, I'm not thinking about anything besides when this deer comes in, I'm putting it right there, and I'm going to watch that friggin' thing my knock bury through him.
I think Warren brings up a good point, though, that something that can be taught, and you teach it to yourself, and that's the anticipation part. What you're talking about, like, because I don't think that I even recognize that I'm doing it, but I'm scanning. I'm scanning where are they going, how are they going to get in that opening? Is there a big opening? Is it a little opening? Is it on one side of the tree or other side of the tree? If they bound, they're probably I can tell they're only going to bound 10 yards. So I'm computing all this in my head that I'm 20-yard pin, okay, that would be 30. And you can do that by practicing that on deer that come in that you don't shoot even. But the more times that you do that on deer you do shoot, the better off you're going to be. Mm-hmm. Because you won't know. You can say all you want, I could have killed him. Not until you execute that shot. And the thing that sucks for me is like you guys talking about, and I taught you guys that, was the drawing smoothly, is I can't do that anymore. I struggle. I do better when I'm in the moment than I do on this range because I guess a little adrenaline gets going and I can draw better, but I don't have that ability. I pretty much have to know I'm going to get a shot here because letting down for me, I'm always afraid the arrow's coming off the rest because I'm going to let down too hard. So if there's people out there that struggle with poundage and stuff like that, lower the poundage if you can. Mine is something that's it's arthritis. There's nothing I can do about it. So, but it definitely puts me at me and Nick missed a few does this year because I couldn't do what we're talking about. No. I couldn't draw, or once I was at full draw, I had to let down.
I think and this kind of goes for life, the lesson that I learned was urgency is a wonderful thing, but everything in life is always urgent. Everything's always pushing you to do it quickly. And that's how hunting is. Like when you have it, everything's so slow, and then the moment a buck shows up, everything is happening right now, right this second. If I don't get a shot right now, it's done for. Like you better get to full draw and shoot right away. And one of the biggest things I've learned is slow every situation in life. Slow it down. Like everything that you have that's coming into your head that you think is all this big deal and all this stuff, slow down. And literally think to yourself, okay, does this actually have to be done in the next minute? Do I have to make a decision in the next minute? No, probably not. And so in life, I've slowed down a lot of things. And in hunting, it is immaculate because I always used to think like the moment I'm at that thing, we practiced it. I mean, we would practice that you got like 4 seconds before they are going to, if they stopped to the point where they're either going to lose interest or they're going to screw this, and they're going to do their thing, and you're going to have to try to figure something out again. And I think slowing myself down, 4 seconds is a long time when you really think about it. When you're sitting there at full draw and you've got 4 seconds, it doesn't take you 4 seconds for your pin to be there and pull the trigger. I mean, and so in my head, slowing it all down, that like calm down. The urgency of this deer walking by. That's why what you guys are talking about is so important, that if you plan things out, okay, there's one hole. I'm going to shoot him right there. But I know that if I don't, not a big deal. Here's another one. Okay, here's another one. If he gets by, you have plans so that you don't get the urgency out of it. Urgency causes so many issues and you just rush it and then you have a bad shot.
Well, I think that, like, when we're talking about, picking the holes, that's just part of it. The other stuff is my arm going to bump the tree?
Mm-hmm.
Is my harness going to get in the way? Do I need to flip my harness to one side or the other? Do I need to, Warren mentioned, shift your feet slightly? When can I do that? Where can I open myself up so that I have a long window to be able to shoot, rather than, well, I can shoot here, but if he goes any farther, I can't get to there. And just understanding how you got to do that. The one that I could tell you, though, that what you just mentioned is the timing is, I have practiced. It's 4 to 7 seconds. That is my average from when I get to full draw till I'm actually releasing an arrow. And because if you spend 15, 20 seconds on the range shooting, you're probably not going to get that much time in the woods.
Yep.
You don't want to be at full draw on a deer for planning on, okay, it's going to take me 15 seconds to settle this pin and shoot. They're probably not going to give you that much time, but they are going to give you more time than that 1 second that people rush.
Well, and I think honestly too, it's important to understand sometimes you do have all the time in the world.
Absolutely.
Because I have seen people where they have a scenario, and it's just because they don't understand the animal's behavior well enough, where they're at full draw and that animal is got no clue and not going anywhere, and they rush. You got to and then they mess it up. A lot of times you got to understand too when they are calm, when you can take your time. For instance, my antelope this year, what those comments told me, the one that you and I stalked, I had all the time in the world, and I even could have gotten back behind the huge thing that we had for cover and drawn again if I need to, and all of these people saying Texas heart shot. So what that makes me think is they're thinking, their immediate thought process is, you're not going to have time to get another
The first shot opportunity is the first shot opportunity.
So you got to take that. You had to have taken that because that was the only opportunity you could get, even though the antelope is 100% calm, 15 yards away, and I have everything in my favor. No, I don't need to take that shot. And I knew that. And I waited until he turned.
Quartered.
And for me, I mean, yeah, he was still quartered hard away, but I like that shot, especially at 15 yards where I know I can hit that and he's 100% calm. That's a chip shot, which it was. He went about 40 yards.
Sure. Well, I hope that we've helped you. I mean, I feel like today has probably been as informative as we could ever have brought you something. I wish we had done this a week earlier maybe, but you got 3 or 4 weeks still good hard hunting. So I just want people to understand that if you guys write in, we're sincere. We're not perfect. We and I'll speak for myself, they're getting there. We get to do this a whole lot, and that's the best way that I can put it is God has been just extremely good to us and allows us to be in the woods. Being a firefighter, I had all this time to go, and I spent a bunch of time doing this, and I learned so much from the mistakes that I've made, and that's what these guys are talking about too. And if we can take those mistakes and help you understand at a quicker rate than us, you may still make them, you may still take a shot you shouldn't, but if you learn it like right away, you're so much further along than we were, or that I was. So my hat's off to you for reaching out and asking. And I mean, I just think, I don't know. I just feel like today was really good. I really do appreciate people writing in. So keep sending the questions.
In honor of, this was really all mental.
Oh yeah.
Right? So we're going to talk about how powerful
the brain
is.
Okay.
So this is about the placebo effect. Okay, so this is a study they did. Poison ivy leaves are a well-known and well-avoided natural phenomenon, and its irritating and itchy effects are dreaded amongst most Americans. Interestingly, there is a Japanese lacquer tree that contains the same irritants and is equally avoided. A Japanese medical study from 1962 conducted an experiment on 13 students sensitive to the Japanese lacquer tree leaves. The students were each exposed to the irritating Japanese lacquer tree leaf on one arm and a harmless leaf on the other arm. However, the students were told that the Japanese lacquer tree leaf was harmless and that the harmless leaf was poisonous.
Ah.
Interestingly enough, all 13 students broke out in a rash from the harmless leaf that they believed was poisonous. Only 2 of the students broke out in a rash from the Japanese lacquer tree leaf, despite all students being hypersensitive to its irritants. This shows that even allergies and sensitivities can be negated by our brains, which is a mind-blowing concept.
That is wild. That is wild.
The only thing that I think it's wild, if that's what you want to use, but I don't know if I believe it 100%, because I'll be honest, there's been so many times when I don't pay attention to poison ivy and I don't get it. I still don't get it. You know what I'm saying?
They said 2 got it. Yeah, but
Right.
you have to be convincing yourself that you're going to get
that
it.
I have to see it and go, oh, geez, I want to avoid that because I might get that. I guess maybe.
Well, fine. Let me give you another one. This one's from Harvard, since the first one wasn't good enough for you.
Where's the last one from?
I can't.
Sound like Japan.
If the gym doesn't sound appealing to you, you may be in luck. Scientists from the Harvard Department of Psychology divided a group of hotel maids into 2 groups. One group was told that their daily tasks at work qualified as exercise, while the other group was told nothing. Little did the first group of maids know the exercise they were doing was non-existent. They were just doing their regular jobs. Despite their jobs not actually providing them a workout, in just 1 month after being told this information, the doctors observed a decrease in their systolic blood pressure, a decline in their weight, a reduction in their body mass index, and a decrease in their waist-to-hip ratio. Not to mention, the maid's blood pressure alone dropped 10% on average. However, this isn't to say that you can lay down on the couch eating pizza all day, believe that the pizza will lead to weight loss, and end up skinnier. This study shows that the power of our brains may be able to extend our physical fitness.
Wow. I believe it. 100%. I believe
The only thing is the only thing that they're very vague on is how much. It just says that there was a decrease.
They said
Could have
10% on their
No, 10% of the one thing they said 10% on. The rest of it, I was listening closely because I was waiting to see if they told you how much weight did they lose, what was the decrease in percentages of the waist to hip and all that stuff, and it could have been a 1% difference. So I don't know. I'm not giving the maids that much.
Yeah, but that's strictly from your brain. That's not actually changing anything. Their blood pressure drops 10% on average. That's a fairly notable amount.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, like if you have a what's 120 over 80?
110 over 60, 110 over 70 would be more like 90 over 50.
That's big.
Yeah, that's significant in blood pressure. I agree, but I don't know if I still believe it or not. Or I'm not bought in on that one. The first one was
the issue is we can't test it with you because if you're not bought in on it, it ain't gonna work.
Problem is we're gonna have so many of our podcast listeners. They're all gonna be at home now and they're gonna be thinking, I'm a black pine. I'm a black pine. I know I can do that because they make the same jokes back to us.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm so glad that I apologized at the beginning of this podcast. We made it through the whole thing until he has to go and make these stupid jokes. So
they make them back to us.
I know some do. Some probably don't because
I've had a few wacky facts shared that I can't even share.
I agree.
Yes, that has been a thing.
They weren't wacky. They're just dirty. So, but we appreciate you guys. We'll read them all to ourselves. We might not share them here. So we aren't offended, I guess. So don't.
No, we aren't offended. We're like, listen to this.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys. Hopefully, like you, we're getting ready to do the same thing. We're going to go jump back in a tree. So I'll close with the same place that I opened, man. If you guys have not been to the website, go there. Raise Sense, Raise Nocks, and Raise Canine. And I'm telling you, check out these canine products. You're going to see we're putting together a new landing page, and we are starting to see, because we're just getting this stuff out there, we're starting to see lots of informational or testimonial people telling us what this stuff is doing for their dogs. So if you guys are like us, you got a dog that you love more than your kids. I've got one named Dan.
I've got a dog I love more than my dad.
Warren doesn't have a dog, so that means that he loves me just as much as he always did, and he can't even say anything.
I love my black brother more than my dad.
Oh, Lord.
Which is Dan.
Which is the same dog.
Now I got to blank that one out. Golly.
Why?
All
Well,
right.
because I didn't want them to confuse it with you.
He's referring to his furry brother is what he's talking about, who happens to be a black lab.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with. I don't have a black brother. Well, I'm like
that we know of.
But
a person.
but you guys are gonna you guys are gonna hear us talking about raised canine a bunch.
That'd be Mocha.
Yeah.
Would you guys shut up? You guys are going to hear us talking about raised canine a bunch because
Fault for going so.
Well, the
we do believe that this is life-changing for your dog. There's several different products, so go check it out. Other than that, we appreciate you guys. Send your pictures. We want to hear the stories of the deer you killed and the ones you didn't. And yes, that includes does, spikes, button bucks, whatever it is. I don't care. If you're out there hunting with a bow and you get it done, you've done something. I'm not saying that gun hunters haven't done something well, but I'm telling with a bow, I'm just saying it's a little bit harder. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining the Raised Hunting crew. We out.